Indiana Jones is one of the most iconic characters ever put to the big screen, but the road to making his first feature film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, wasn't an easy one. But I'm not surprised. If my parents were the brilliant Steven Spielberg and the worthless George Lucas, I'd be pretty fucking confused too.
It scares me.
The character was originally conceived by my best friend George whilst he was on production of American Graffiti. Lucas had been a huge fan of old B-movie adventure serials from the 1940s since childhood and wanted to make a movie paying homage to them, because Lord knows with his track record he can't have an original idea on his own. That'd be silly.
That does sometimes take place.
Lucas's experience of trying to produce a Flash Gordon adaptation led to the creation of Star Wars, and this inspired him to create his own character for this potential film, at which point he wrote a story with his friend Philip Kaufman under the title The Adventures of Indiana Smith, which is quite possibly the whitest name anyone could have ever come up with.
And you thought I'd given up?
Lucas imagined his character as a college professor and archaeologist adventurer based on his own appreciation for archaeology, but also envisioned him as a womanizer and part-time club owner. However, Kaufman convinced Lucas to drop the latter aspect and also suggested the Ark of the Covenant as the film's central goal and the inclusion of the Nazis as villains, playing off of Hitler's historical fascination with the occult. Lucas wanted Kaufman to direct the film, but he declined as he was already committed to working on the outlaw Josie Wales, at which point Lucas shelved the idea again and resumed working on Star Wars. At least he managed to get R2-D2 and C-3PO a cameo, I guess.
Always being generous.
Following the opening of Star Wars in 1977, Lucas went on holiday to Hawaii to avoid any negative press from the movie's release, and invited his pal Steven Spielberg to join him. Whilst there, Spielberg expressed his desire to direct a James Bond movie, at which point Lucas said that he had created a character better than Bond, and pitched his story. Spielberg loved the idea and brought in newcomer Lawrence Kasdan to help him and Lucas develop the screenplay. The three men would spend up to 9 hours a day for nearly 2 months ironing out the story, and several ideas emerged from these meetings, including the boulder chase, the monkey eating the poison dates in Cairo, and government agents locking the Ark in a vault at the end. However, both Spielberg and Kasdan hated the name Smith, and eventually persuaded Lucas to change it to Jones instead.
Nothing else has come close.
Several ideas were cut, however. Lucas originally wanted Jones to be a spoiled alcoholic playboy. You know, nothing like Bond, funding his lifestyle with the spoils of his adventures. But Spielberg and Kasdan felt the character would be more compelling portrayed as an underdog, someone who is always just on the verge of being taken down but manages to always come out on top by the skin of his teeth. Lucas also wanted the character of Marion to have formed a romance with the much older Indy at the age of 11, but Spielberg vetoed this, insisting that she be aged up. Although some of this did make it into the film.
I was a child. I was in love. It was wrong and you knew it.
You knew what you were doing.
Why is Indiana Jones a nonce? In fact, why isn't George Lucas investigated? I mean, with this and then Padme clearly grooming Anakin. I'm noticing a pattern, that's all I'm saying.
I did what I did. You don't have to be happy about it.
Once these original ideas were all put into play, Spielberg commissioned Kasdan to come up with a first draft, while he and Lucas pursued other projects. Kasdan stated that the hardest part of writing was figuring out how Indy would fall into dangerous situations and always survive, as well as how he would travel between locations. A draft was finally finished in August of 1978 after approximately 5 months of writing. Spielberg liked the draft but considered it too long, insisting that Lucas and Kasdan collaborate to cut it down. To Kasdan's annoyance, much of the love story between Indy and Marion was condensed, and mutual attraction between Marion and Belloc was removed, as well as a sequence where Indy travelled to Shanghai ending with a climactic minecart chase, though this would later be used in another installment.
I got it all figured out.
Lucas had originally planned to finance the movie himself, but due to a lack of money, he began shopping the screenplay around to several studios in the hope that they would fund the production. However, it was turned away by every studio he asked, mostly because of the deal Lucas demanded from them. No creative input from the producers, a $20 million budget, and full rights to any potential sequels. They were also hesitant about Spielberg as director, as his last movie, 1941, had been a critical and commercial disappointment, but Lucas refused to do the project without his best mate. Eventually, Paramount agreed to finance the picture under 2 conditions. It wouldn't go over budget, and that the studio would retain the rights to any future installments.
I understand.
When casting the iconic Indiana Jones, Lucas was determined to cast a relative unknown who would be willing to commit to a trilogy, considering Bill Murray, Nick Nolte, Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, Tim Matheson, Jack Nicholson, Jeff Bridges, and Sam Elliott, among others. Tom Selleck was eventually cast, but he was then forced to drop out due to his commitment to Magnum P.I. Spielberg then suggested Harrison Ford after seeing his performance in The Empire Strikes Back, but Lucas was hesitant as Ford was already a well-known actor at this point, and he didn't think that he would agree to commit commit to another trilogy after Star Wars. However, to his surprise, Ford agreed to the deal, who also managed to secure a percentage of the profits and the option to rewrite his dialogue where needed.
Man of many talents.
When casting the role of Marion, Lucas wanted Deborah Winger, but she turned the job down due to lack of interest. And Barbara Hershey, Stephanie Zimbalist, Sean Young and Barbara Stanwyck were all considered before selecting Karen Allen after seeing her performance in Animal House. For the rest of the major characters, Giancarlo Giannini and Jonathan Pryce were considered for Belloc before it was given to Paul Freeman, and Danny DeVito was Spielberg's first choice for Salah, but he had to turn it down due to scheduling conflicts with Taxi, and the role was given to Gimli, son of Gloin himself, John Rhys Davis. Although in hindsight, casting a Welsh fella to play an Egyptian man, probably not the best choice.
Yes, that's just what the Hebrews thought.
Filming began in June 1980 in France before moving to Tunisia, Hawaii and England, and lasted 3 months, but it wasn't all wine and roses. Spielberg described filming in Tunisia as one of his worst filmmaking experiences. The temperature often reached 54 degrees Celsius, and most of the cast and crew became sick with dysentery from the local food. However, Lucas said that this was the film he had the least on-set problems with, due to the lack of studio interference. Furthermore, the loose nature of the screenplay meant that many of the film's most iconic scenes were improvised, such as Indy's student flashing the love you message, Marion putting on a dress to conceal a weapon, and Marion and Belloc getting drunk together. Although there is another drinking scene in the movie, which just annoys the piss out of me. How slowly do they sip their shots? Just fucking neck it! It's more annoying because in the improvised scene, she drinks this quicker than she took her shot.
I can only say I'm sorry so many times.
When filming concluded in September 1980, the original cut was roughly 3 hours long, before being cut down to just under 2. However, George Lucas's wife Marcia noticed that Marion vanished from the film following the closing of the arc, and this suggestion led to Spielberg shooting the final scene with Indy and Marion together on the steps of San Francisco City Hall.
Because I said so, that's why.
So after an insanely long writing process and a buttload of set problems, Raiders of the Lost Ark was finally released on June the 12th, 1981 to worldwide acclaim. Not only was it a huge box office hit, grossing $389 million, the fourth highest grossing in history at the time, funnily enough only behind 3 movies that were also made by Lucas or Spielberg, but it was nominated for 9 Oscars including Best Picture and won 5 of them, spawned 3 sequels as well as an upcoming 4th one that comes out very soon, you might have heard about it, and it's universally considered to be one of the greatest movies ever made, and is to this day one of the most parodied and imitated films in all of pop culture.
I defy you to find a story problem.
Indiana Jones plays no role in the outcome of the story. If he weren't in the film, it would turn out exactly the same. If he weren't in the movie, the Nazis would have still found the Ark, taken it to the island, opened it up, and all died. Just like they did.
I mean, it is a pretty scary inanimate statue. I've had issues with Harrison Ford's acting in the past, but I can't front. He is brilliant as Indiana Jones, even if he is a paedophile. I mean, he's apparently able to give women multiple orgasms just by speaking. His character is pretty badass, barely reacting to a spider while Dr. Octopus here shits himself. Okay, he is slightly dumb to be tricked by him a few moments later, but luckily for him, they installed the slowest moving doors in history. But I can't get behind the whip. Apparently they wanted to set this character apart from the likes of James Bond, so they gave him a different weapon, but I'm sorry, a whip isn't a cool weapon. It's such a sissy weapon, I can't take it seriously.
Oh, I'm gonna get ya. Oh, be afraid. Don't wanna mess with me. Oh yeah. You bad guys are in for a world of pain.
Wait a minute, no, the Nazis were digging in the wrong place. The only reason they got the Ark was because Indy found it first.
Actually, they were only digging in the wrong place because Indy had the medallion. Without him, they would have had the medallion and dug in the right place.
Hell, at one point, he rushes to save the day with his whip of death, but then just seconds later uses a gun. The fuck does he even need the stupid whip for anyway? It just annoys me because the character is cool enough as it is. This just brings him down. Stop trying to make it cool, it's a whip. He acts like it's a damn Uzi. It's a fucking whip! The famous boulder scene is amazing. You can tell why it's been parodied to death ever since. It is such an awesome sequence. Oh, and Indy stumbling as he runs away wasn't even in the script. Harrison Ford had shot this over 10 times already and was exhausted, so this was a genuine mistake, but Spielberg liked it so much he kept it in. You can see the movie's influence, even outside of parodies. They gave Pirates of the Caribbean a scene to completely rip off in a few decades' time, so that was nice of them. And maybe even Ace Ventura. And absolutely everything ever that has done this.
Shut your eyes, Mary, and don't look at it no matter what happens.
But of course, they have to give the hero an Achilles heel so he can somehow be slowed down or stopped. Turns out he's terrified of snakes, which is fine, I don't blame him, they're horrible little bastards. And it's an awesome intense scene when he's trapped in a pit with them. My issue lies with how random and forced the foreshadowing is to explain it. He literally gets in his friend's plane and...
There's a big snake in the plane, Jack! Oh, that's just my pet snake, Reggie! I hate snakes, Jack!
That's it, he just gets in his mate's plane, oh look, there's a snake, by the way I hate them, and then later on, oh look, there's snakes. It's just so forced. I do like the overall story arc. It's a nice little tie-in as he teaches history but blends it together with religion.
What are you trying to do? Scare me? You sound like my mother. We've known each other for a long time. I don't believe in magic, a lot of superstitious hocus pocus.
He said it, I didn't. But look, have not so subtle Jesus symbolism. I mean, Indiana Jones is about Adolf Hitler trying to get his hands on a magic secret weapon to become immortal. It's kind of amazing when you think of it that way. Adolf Hitler is a Marvel villain. In fact, I'm genuinely surprised they did put Hitler in the film. Imagine how awesome that would have been, watching Hitler's face melt.
I know it.
I love that Indy isn't just this unstoppable badass. He's a very human hero who faces struggles, and it's also great that the Nazis take fucking forever to do anything so that he can always survive. No wonder the cunts lost the war. There's a scene where he goes to rescue Marion, but then he realises that he can't because the Nazis will then immediately know he's there and the entire place will be hunting for them. So he has to leave her behind. He's a very clever hero. I mean, I'm pretty sure he'd be able to save them anyway, but still.
Wait, if it wasn't for Indiana Jones, the Ark would never have ended up at the warehouse. That's true. He collected and delivered the Ark to the proper authorities for filing.
Like a hero!
Yes!
Although technically, Indy was supposed to take the Ark to a museum to be studied, he couldn't even get that done.
Oh.
There's a scene where he gets cornered by this intimidating fella who looks like he's about to kick ass, but Indy just shoots him, which is fucking hilarious. The funny thing is, it wasn't planned either. The script had him yank the sword out of his hand with his fucking whip! But on the day of shooting, Harrison Ford was sick from food poisoning and he wasn't able to perform the stunt, so he decided to just shoot him instead. So why use a whip if he has a gun? He ends up getting the shit beat out of him, but he manages to win with wit after seriously getting obliterated. It's pretty gruesome, and I love the guy's death. This is pretty cool. It's like he's considering his options at this point. He could pretend to be a Nazi to get by, but then says, fuck it. And it's my husband, Steven Spielberg, so I'm just gonna blow his load about how good the direction is. He could direct a McDonald's commercial and I would nominate it for an Oscar. The villain is so creepy. He doesn't even have to speak. He's just so chilling. But then when he does talk, it adds to it. He's terrifying.
We are not thirsty.
He even tries to burn Marion to get information. It's fucked up. What the hell is this guy doing here? He looks high. There are, admittedly, some very funny scenes.
Traitor, you get your hands off of me!
And I'm also not sure if this is supposed to be funny, but this massive guy shows up for a fight and Indy just looks so fed up with today. Oh, for fuck's sake. Go on then. And the Indy theme song is amazing. Though some scenes are pretty weird. I don't know, just a personal pet peeve. When there's a fight scene and there's no dialogue or anything, it's just this weird, awkward attack.
You can't do this to me! I'm an American!
That's exactly why they can do it to you, you silly cunt.
We meet again, Fräulein. Americans, you're all the same.
She's not fat with a gun.
Indy!
Ah, it's the fans waiting for Beetlejuice 2. The action and chase scenes are a lot of fun, and it's even more enjoyable that you could expect Indy to die. He's not Jason Statham or The Rock. He's shown struggle, so there is a chance he could kick the bucket at any given moment. It's such an awesome sequence on the truck, and so creative. He literally crawls under a moving truck. Although there's a very weird scene where Indy gets Marion to kiss his boo-boos. But I mean, it's actually the opposite. He gets her to kiss where it doesn't hurt, which is odd and just kind of cringe. Is he 12? And even her kisses put him to sleep, the boring bitch. The visuals at the end are amazing. I mean, the villain screaming is pretty funny, but the rest is so intense, so dark, and so disturbing, and I fucking love it. The special effects are insane.
Dr. Jones, we have top men working on it right now. Who? Top men.
It's Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, alright? The movie is great. It's fun with a decent and likeable hero to root for. The story is engaging and the effects, stunt and cinematography are just a whole lot of fun. Which is weird considering it's a movie with Nazis trying to take over the world. But Raiders of the Lost Ark is certainly a great start to this franchise.
Not only did you ruin Raiders for me, you may have ruined the whole franchise. Except for the fourth one, which was bad before you got your mitts on it.